Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Wrestling Art with Chris Things.
Ray! Do the hammerlock! I do the hammerlock! Ray! Do the hammerlock, you turkey necks! Yeah, do the hammerlock!
Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Wrestling Art with Chris Things. I am Chris Things Brian, art dude, wrestling dude. Dude. You know, I feel like in today's day and age, there's a lot of not so good stuff going on, and sometimes you just got to be like the dude about it. You know, like fuck it, let's go bowling. You know, you make your own happiness. You choose to be on the happy train or the sad train. Anyway, I'm not a life guru guy. I'm just a wrestling art guy, and that's what we're here to talk about today. Today we have a very exciting one of our special edition Wrestling Art Curator episodes. The episodes where I turn the microphone around and I put a spotlight on some other very talented wrestling artists out there, talk about their practice, and today I got a bloody good one. Got a very talented artist who specializes in some wonderful oil paintings, just some epic stuff between like deathmatch stuff and Joshi stuff. Really caught my eye. But Helen Hunter will be coming up in a little bit. But before we get to that, a little scheduling note for you. So I did note earlier on my post that we do this kind of like we have in the past, where we have a Wrestling Art Curator episode, and then the following day I do our normal weekly scheduled Match of the Week edition. However, I gave it a little bit of thought, and I'm like, 2 podcasts a week. It's a little bit much. You know, I struggle to listen to like 1 podcast a week, to be honest. So I feel like a smarter way for us to do it. Let's try this on. Let's see how this goes. On these weeks when we have our Wrestling Art Curator interview, or interview the artists, I'll then let's turn around for the following week. How about we do a double header, a double main event edition of our Match of the Week? We catch up on the previous Match of the Week that we missed out, as well as a new one. I think that might be pretty fun, because we'll be able to sandwich some pretty interesting, weirdly contrasting matches together, perhaps, and we get to talk about both of them. So I think that'll be good. Let's try that on, see how that goes. But, you know, on to our regular Chris Things Art monologue, as I guess it's come to be known. I've had some stuff going on this week. I've continued on with our kind of thing that we started doing on this march onto the new Way of the Blade book coming out, the AEW edition sequel, where I look back at the previous original Way of the Blade and put a bit of a spotlight on some of my favourite matches, favourite illustrations from that book. And this past week, I did so for a match that I bloody love so much. That being the infamous Samoa Joe versus Necro Butcher match from IWA Mid-South at the ECW Arena. And man, what can you say about this match other than it's just, like I said, it's just rugged, it's balls out, it's raw, it's violent, it's just everything that I love out of wrestling sometimes. So I think I obviously really this match is quite close to my heart. Did my best to try to capture that spirit of it in the illustrations, and then when I posted it this week, I was so surprised and delighted by the outpouring of response to it. Just honestly so tickled pink about like the amount of people that loved this, that were, very complimentary about the illustration, but even more than that, just said how much they loved this match and how much this match meant to them. A whole bunch of people who said like this was like their favorite match ever. being such a polarizing match, I know I think that kind of stuff, but yeah, it was really nice to see that sort of connecting up to other people's passions. And that's at the end of the day a big part of why I do what I do. So that was super cool. You can purchase that print if you'd like. If you want some Necro Butcher versus Samoa Joe action on your wall, jump on christhings.com.au. I think that's a good place for you to go and yeah, maybe you can get that one. But we'll continue on in the lead up to the new book. I'll continue this kind of tradition that we've created here next week. Now, in addition to that, I also I think previously I mentioned in the show a little collab that I did with a very talented video highlight artist, IQ Wrestler, for his great Terry Funk album, or I guess highlight video, really. And I got to do like a faux album artwork for it, like a Conway Twitty meets Terry Funk's Forever famous promo. And so I got to see the teaser trailer that he did for that highlight video. But then they did the full one came out, and I finally got to watch it this week. And oh my gosh, it is so wonderful. For all of my fellow funk appreciators out there, this just was so great to see. Like, I think the best thing I can say about it is, as someone who loves and appreciates Terry Funk, there's some of those weird little Terryisms, you can't quite put your finger on it. It's just weird but wonderful. And this highlight video captures that so well. So I want to make sure to direct you all to check out IQ Wrestler on Twitter. And then you can check out their YouTube page, Vimeo as well. But watch this highlight video. It is bloody art. It was so great. It's only going to take 6 minutes of your time, but such a great thing. And then if you like it that much, well, you can even buy the faux album artwork to hang up on your wall, which a bunch of people actually have this last little while. I've been so pleased with the reception that has gotten. So I've had quite a few orders of that coming in. I'm actually going to the printer to pick up another one to send out for another person this afternoon. So if that sounds up your alley, again, christhings.com.au. Take a gander. Maybe get yourself a 12-inch, record LP faux artwork for your wall. I think that'd be pretty cool. But I think that's about it for my my Chris Things monologue for the week. But yeah, we have a very exciting interview to throw to. So let's throw over to Chris in the studio with a very talented wrestling artist. Enjoy. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I am very excited. We have our latest Wrestling Art Curator edition guest on the line here. Someone whose work that I've recently become a big fan of, whose work has just a wonderfully expressive, lively quality to it, just amazing oil paintings, and I'm very, very excited to talk to Helen Hunter. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me, Chris.
Oh, you're very, very welcome. I appreciate having you on the line. I appreciate you breaking our sort of accidental tradition of only interviewing Australian wrestling artists.
Well, I'm honored to be that person.
No, so you're from Chicago, right?
Well, I just moved here about 5 months ago. I spent the last 17 years in Portland, Oregon. I'm originally from the Midwest, from Ohio, which is one of the shittier parts of this country. But I went to college out in Portland, Oregon on the West Coast, and loved it there. Met my husband, we stayed, and then had so many kids. We have 3 kids, and 2 of them are twins. And so they're like about 2 years apart. So I just went from like being in an undergraduate like art program to all of a sudden having 3 kids.
Wow.
So we moved back to Chicago because I was like, oh my God, if I ever want to like be able to paint or have a social life, I need like a lot more help. So we actually moved into his childhood home, and his parents got a place like a few blocks away, which is great because they can help all the time. And now I'm actually starting like moving across the country is hard, but moving across the country with 3 kids is like unbelievably challenging. So I'm just now kind of getting to a place where I can start thinking about what is next for me with painting. I have my kind of big, if glow down is a phrase, I used to paint in this like lovely detached garage in Portland that was like filthy and it was not finished. I mean, I liked it like that. It just felt like I was leaving my house that I'm like kind of obsessed with cleaning because of aforementioned small kids, and would go into the garage and just like be in a different world and just paint. And that was so great. But now I'm set up in my laundry room, which means that I have to kind of work smaller and be a little bit more careful with fumes because I can't just like open the doors to outside.
Right.
And then surprise, here in Chicago, it gets like really freaking cold. It was like -10 on Monday. Oh, you're in Celsius.
No, I mean I'm familiar with how chilly it can get in Chicago. I've been there quite a few times. Absolutely love Chicago.
Okay. Cool.
I've never been there the fully like most frosty part of winter before. Normally like either going into it or coming out of it. But
I recommend it. It sucks. It's like where I grew up, it would get like pretty cold and snowy, but the wind is no joke, and I'm like pretty close up to the lake, so it's just like what's really concerning is how people in Chicago seem just like kind of fine with it. Like I'm kind of freaking out, like, can you believe it's gonna be this cold? And they're like, oh, just put on layers, you'll be fine. Like, okay.
Oh man, yeah, absolutely right. It's like that, the whole windy city thing, and then you get there and it's just this like bone chilling wind when it's cold. Like I said, I wasn't even there for the worst sort of cold part of it, but I went to a Cubs game probably early in the year, and man, like you get that, you think, all right, I'm okay, and then just a breeze comes over the field and you feel it in your bones.
yeah Well, yeah, so part of sorry, I'm like I'm laughing because I'm like, should I mention this? Part of my like deal with having our 3rd kid was that I wanted to get an MFA and the I don't know if you call it the same thing in Australia, but like a master's in fine arts. And so the Chicago Art Institute is here, obviously, and that's
nice.
I'm not like ready to go back to school yet. I need to wait till my kids like get into full day school and stuff, but I hope that can be like a step in the future for me to be cool.
For sure. I mean, it's funny. I actually had in my notes here of wanting to talk to you about that sort of move from Portland to Chicago and how that sort of like influenced, if in any way it's had like an impact on your art, practice. So it's quite interesting to hear about the future plans.
Yeah, thanks. I actually thought about this because, it's not like I'm making art because I want to be like a big famous artist or I want to make like millions of dollars, which, many artists make. But, I had like a artist community in Portland that I really miss. But they're in like this part of my art life that doesn't totally overlap with my wrestling art life. I feel like I'm kind of in 2 worlds here, where on one side I like fucking love making these insane wrestling paintings and I do a number of commissions. I stay busy with it, which is pretty awesome. And on the other hand, wrestling has played like a symbolic role in the art that I make. That's about my own psychology and my own experience just like living in the world. But I've kind of like it hasn't shown up in like a couple of recent paintings. So I'm still doing like wrestling fan art, which again is just sick and I love to do it. But this other side of me is kind of veering off in this other direction. So in terms of like how the move has affected that wrestling side of things, most of the people that I interact with about wrestling are on the internet. So I'm not really like losing any kind of viewership or something being in a different city. In fact, I'm going to like meet up with a wrestling artist who's based in Chicago that I know from Instagram that hopefully isn't like a serial killer or anything. We're going to go see New Japan is coming to Chicago in April, I think.
Yeah.
I'm pretty excited because that's really my bread and butter. I love New Japan.
Yeah, nice. Yeah. Oh, that's so good. I think the whole, that balance between wrestling art and like, your other kind of art stuff is always such an interesting thing to sort of talk about. Mm-hmm. It's definitely something that I've touched on with both of the prior wrestling artists that I've had on, and something that I honestly kind of struggle with a bit myself with my own sort of art, and then finding that balance so it can sort of, appeal to people outside of that bubble. Mm-hmm. So I definitely am keen to talk to you about that. Before we get any further, I want to point everyone to, if you're listening to this and you got your little, Instagram machine in your hot little hands, I'd recommend jumping on Helen Hunter Art into your Instagram machine there and have a look at some of this art, because we're going to be talking about a bit of it, and I think it's so cool to see. But that makes a lot of sense from what you're saying about Portland. At least from my sort of like, I've been to Portland once before, loved it. I thought everything was so quaint and quirky and lovely. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the old Portlandia TV show.
Oh my God!
But yeah. I thought a lot of that rung very true.
It felt like offensive. I would watch episodes of that and be like, "That I literally did that yesterday. Stop it."
So good.
But yes, you're not wrong.
But definitely a very lively art scene there. But definitely also, from what you're saying, and not necessarily that much of a connection with the wrestling art side of it. Like, Portland actually does have a massively rich wrestling history.
Yes, and I was just going to interject that their like indie wrestling is so awesome, and I don't want it to sound like there aren't a ton of amazing wrestling fans in Portland. It's just that the art I was involved with in Portland was not wrestling oriented.
Yeah. I could definitely imagine that. But yeah, between the independent scene, I've just been chatting about some of the stuff like Prestige Wrestling and the Roseland Ballroom, and there's a lot of great stuff going on there.
Yeah.
And then, back into the early 90s and 80s, back with the Don Owens territory. I'm a massive fan of Buddy Rose and all of that great wrestling in Portland. But yeah, it's so funny how sometimes the art scene can be so removed from that, and then moving somewhere like Chicago, where I would say Chicago is probably one of the hot spots of the wrestling world for sure. Between what you're saying about New Japan, so many great independent wrestling shows, freelance wrestling, which do some really cool stuff, Logan Square Auditorium. But yeah, a lot of cool stuff going on in Chicago, and I could imagine that maybe the Chicago, there is a little bit more of a place for wrestling within the Chicago art scene. Are you seeing much other sort of like wrestling in the art scene over there, or art in the wrestling scene, I guess?
Yeah, so I actually haven't been to a wrestling show since I've been here, which kind of like hurts my heart. I went monthly in Portland to DOA wrestling, which was just fantastic, and I loved it.
Nice.
But a wrestler from BC, who I see when he comes down to Portland, told me that I would like freelance wrestling, and so I'm thinking about going in February to their next show, which would be pretty cool. But no, I haven't encountered like a whole ton of Chicago related, like wrestling related art. I'm positive it's out there. I mean, you said in a previous episode that I don't know, you were just like mentioning the like weird little community of like wrestling artists. Like I know they're here in Chicago too. I know I'm not, but like I said, most of the interacting I do with other wrestling artists is like on Instagram. But it would be fun to like, I don't know, have a con, have like a little wrestling artist convention.
Oh, absolutely, and I think Chicago would be the absolute perfect spot for it. It's so funny, this weird little wrestling art community. I mean, this podcast has sort of been a big part about trying to gather that community a little bit, because it's always like, at least so far, it's been so fun for me to just nerd out about this thing that I'm like super passionate about, and then finding it appeals to other people in a similar kind of way. So I think that would be fantastic. Kind of getting back to the start, I always like to sort of ask people about both their art journey and then the wrestling art journey. And you sort of spoken a little bit about that, when it comes to that move, the geographic move. But, I mean, getting back to square one with art, were you always like an art kid, or is this something that came in later in life?
Kind of both. I did a lot of art stuff until I got to high school, and then I didn't have like, I wasn't super good at drawing, and I would get really discouraged and stuff, and I kind of pivoted to writing. Like fiction and poetry and stuff. And then I did that in college. And I just stopped doing any kind of visual art. And then by the time I was like 25, I realized that I really wanted to be doing that. And I was like, I don't really know how to draw super well. I don't know how to paint super well, but like, I really want to learn how to do this. So I just kind of did. And then I like got sucked into teaching preschool, which was never what I wanted to do. It just kind of like, I was a babysitter, and then I like did summer camps, and then I got a job at a school, and all of a sudden I was a preschool teacher, and I was like, I just like not what I wanted to do. So I had the ability to quit and go back to art school and get my BFA. And so I graduated with that in 2019. It was like right before the pandemic.
Oh, good timing there.
So I know I graduated in December, and I have friends that had to finish out the year, and it's like just awful. But anyway, it was during that time at art school that I even encountered wrestling at all. Like I never watched it in my life. I always like turned my nose up at it. Can I segue into my wrestling art story? Because this is kind of it.
Yeah, please. That's what I said. The wrestling art journey as well, for sure.
Okay. So now it's like 2018, we meet up with wrestling. So like I said, I've never watched it. I thought it was like, it just wasn't for me, whatever. And so it's 2018, my grandma died, Betty. She was a wonderful woman, and I loved her so much. And the day after her funeral was WrestleMania. And I had heard like I had overheard a conversation, or like had it in my head from someone at art school about like wrestling being like performance art. WrestleMania was on the day after my grandma's funeral. And I was just like, I don't want to think about anything. I just want to watch something really dumb. And I watched it, and I was like, wait, I didn't think I realized what wrestling was. Like, it just was not what I thought it was. And all of a sudden it was like so fascinating to me, because I was looking at it through the eyes of somebody who was like in art school. And also because I was seeing things in wrestling that I just like never seen other places, in both in terms of like bodies doing crazy things, which is, aesthetically something I really enjoy drawing. Like I had been doing a lot of basketball art, because there's like people with crazy bodies in basketball, like 7'4", like just doing crazy athletic stuff. But wrestling took it to the next level, where I was like, whoa, I cannot believe what I just saw. And it was I still am a total prick, but at the beginning I like couldn't watch a ladder match. I was like, someone is going to lose a finger, and I'm going to like throw up, but I couldn't stop watching it. Like I watched that WrestleMania, And I cried so much because I was sad about my grandma, but also like I remember seeing it was 2018 and Triple H and Ronda Rousey had a match. And Ronda Rousey picked up Triple H, and there was this shot of her just looking fierce as fuck. And let me like segue here and say, like, I don't like her as a person, so don't get it twisted, but this is who it is in the story. She picks up Triple H, and all these dudes behind her in the audience are just like losing their shit, so hyped. It's so exciting. And I realized I've never seen a woman's expression of anger like celebrated like that in media anywhere. And
Right.
I like had to learn more about that because as an artist, I like tend to think narratively. And I wonder if maybe that is like related to the fact that I pivoted into writing for a little bit. Maybe just what I'm exploring visually is can't separate itself from narrative. But anyway, I'm interested in how like women's anger, just that as a subject. It ended up being what I did for my like undergraduate thesis was like doing a lot of reading and making work around the idea of expressing anger as a woman. But anyway,
I love that. That is so fascinating because you're right. There's so much of a bullshit thing in society of like, you know, no one likes an angry woman kind of like crap.
Yeah.
But in the world of wrestling, it's like celebrated. People love to see that. And that's like amazing when you think about it.
Yeah. So I found that like there's a really good book called Good and Mad, and it's probably pretty dated at this point. But it's about women's anger, but it's related to a lot of stuff that happened after the 2016 like Trump election and then the Me Too movement. Just about how, well, anyway, I'll let you read it. But my search to understand like why I was attracted to wrestling led me to like 80s and 90s like Joshi. Japanese women's wrestling, and
Love it.
because that's where I found like
So good.
just this brutal shit, and the fact that it was like all female audience members, and like it was just like totally a women's space.
It's such a cool scene.
Yeah.
I love that stuff so much. It's like so dear to my heart, and like the best part about it, I think, is seeing it, and seeing like the younger female fans who are there, and like seeing this as like role models and like celebrating it, and like I actually got to go to some women's Japanese wrestling shows in Japan. And probably the best one was I got to go to a show called Sendai Girls, which is run by Meiko Satomura, who's like one of the greatest just pure pro wrestlers, regardless of gender, that I've ever seen. She's amazing, and this company is so cool. And
she was like my early muse.
Oh, she's so great. And but the big thing about seeing this show at Korakuen Hall was that seeing all of the female fans there and just see them celebrate this like awesome, badass, kick-ass professional wrestling that's better than like most of the men's stuff that you see. I dig that whole scene in Joshi wrestling so much.
It fucking rules. Okay, Meiko Satomura is an absolute queen. I love her so much. She was did you watch Gaia Girls, the documentary?
Yeah, for sure.
It's like on
Love
YouTube.
It. She was there during that infamous dropkick scene, right?
Oh my God. She's such a badass. I really we went to Japan like right after I finished my BFA in like January 2020. So wild to be in like the densest areas in terms of like people. We went to Wrestle Kingdom. And then come home and it's locked down like a few weeks later.
Wild.
But I digress. I wanted to go to Sendai, but it didn't really work into our travel schedule.
Yeah.
But anyway, the Joshi is just such a goldmine of bodies doing crazy things and narratives that involve women like engaging in heroic and brutal acts outside of the realm of it relating to men, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, that's my favorite thing I think about Joshi wrestling is that it's an entire promotion that's just based in celebrating women's wrestling. It's not like a sideshow act to the men. It's not like, all right, here we have this, and then now we have the women's match or the women's division. I think the best that this can be is an entire promotion that's just about celebrating women's wrestling, and it doesn't matter about like the men, you know, what are the men doing or whatever. It's like, no, you're not part of this. This is just about women's professional wrestling, and I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. So yeah, that's how I got to wear well, actually, like, I don't know. I guess I started really painting wrestling when I was in art school, because I had this class that I got to like make my own homework. I got to decide what I was doing, and then I just did it. So I was like, I'm going to paint wrestling, and that way I have to watch wrestling to like find the right shots to work from. But yeah.
How can I ask? Because that was the questions that I actually had, was how much I love your subject matter for your wrestling stuff, and how it weirdly lines up with, you know, so many of my own interests in professional wrestling, especially Japanese professional wrestling, between the deathmatch stuff, which I'm definitely looking forward to talk about that a bit more later, but then more specifically the Joshi stuff. And about that whole, especially like 80s and 90s scene, and about like so many great, just visually interesting characters between someone like a Bull Nakano or a Dump Matsumoto, or, you know, like the deathmatch Joshi stuff, I think is the absolute peak of it, of like, you know, Megumi Kudo and the FMW women's stuff. So cool. But before we go any further, like, how did you get onto that stuff, and like how did that sort of become such a big thing of your wrestling art thing?
Well, I mean, I was getting into it with talking about anger. Like, as an art subject in art school, you know, I had to figure out what I wanted to paint, and I love painting bodies, and I am female bodied, so I feel like weird to paint. I don't know. I feel weird like making a painting and then using a male body as the subject, because like most of my paintings are just like kind of about me. I hope that doesn't sound really like self-centered, but I mean, I feel ideologically like I can't paint. It's like speaking for somebody else. Like, I can't make a painting about your life. You know, whatever. But so I wanted to explore this idea of the fearsome woman, is what I called her in art school. Just like, what if there was an archetype of a woman who is just so like brutal and unrepentant, and wrestling was a place where I could find this just over and over again. Bull Nakano is incredible. She is this woman. But there's like, I found, you know, different facets of what an angry woman could be in pro wrestling. Like in the US, or not the US, let me rephrase this. In looking in different parts of media, if you look at a woman who is like engaging in violence, she is like getting revenge, or she is evil and despicable, or the violence is happening to her. It's never like she's like a hero, or I don't know, it's like defending somebody or something. Like, to see that thematically in Joshi matches, plus the over the top like theatrical elements with the costumes, with like some of the entrance songs. I can't name them because like they're not like songs that I know the names to, but like there's this one entrance that not Kumikudo.
One of my favorites is not Kyoko Inoue.
Who is it? Oh, I'm thinking of Minami Toyota.
Oh yeah, so good.
She like came out in this gorgeous like silk gown one time that is just like so awesome, that you can engage two different sides of like femininity. You can have this like delicate, beautiful costume that you're wearing, and then you can make someone else bleed. And it's like so sick because it just, I feel like, pushes the boundaries of what womanhood can look like. Because after all, I'm painting a picture of a woman. So I'm kind of deciding like what I want the viewer to see. And my topic is like, I'm going to talk about women. So I'm trying to fight against that reductive gaze that can happen when you're looking at a painting of a woman, where you're either like looking at her body and looking at her as an object, or placing her into some other narrative that's in your head. Like I like to break out of that when I'm like painting pictures of women. So, I mentioned before that violence is usually happening to women in stories. So it's cool to paint, or it's cool to me to paint women who are the ones like, engaging in violence, and men aren't even there usually.
Yeah.
Although
so
I do
cool.
like someday I will get to the Jeff Jarrett China like Good Housekeeping match. I'll paint that someday. I'm like I'm holding it for
Nice.
like the right time.
Sick. I love that. I mean, it's funny you say the that sort of contrast, I guess, between fierce violence and just the beautiful costumes and everything. There's someone that you've done a few paintings of that is probably, potentially one of the greatest wrestlers of all time in Akira Hokuto. And she is someone that I thought walked the line so well between that amazing high drama and just that pure violent physicality that's like some of the most badass wrestling you'll ever see, and then just these absolutely beautiful entrance outfits and like I cannot say enough good things about her and that, especially that match that you painted with her with the big crimson mask, as they say, match, that famous moment. She's just so much fun to make art of.
Yeah, she is. She is so emotive, and love a crimson mask. Honestly, like death matches are the best to paint because like blood makes everything more exciting. Like, I don't know. I just finished this commission with this big like fireball, and there's like a bloody shirt and barbed wire, and I was just like, damn, this is all my favorite shit in one painting.
Oh my gosh, that painting was originally what got me onto your stuff, and I love it so much.
Oh, thank you.
And I'm a big fan of FMW and Onita and Mr. Pogo, and it's just such a great moment where Pogo's blowing the fire and Onita's like blocking it with this block of wood or whatever it is. But my gosh, this. I think the thing I love about it, so it's a combination of things. So your color scheme, I think, really brings out the nostalgia for the time. I mean, it brings out a big nostalgia in me because I love the subject matter, but I think the color scheme really just brings you right back to that kind of moment. It has like a nostalgic glow in a sense, but then also like you can feel the heat from this work, and the texture of the fire is just fantastic. I absolutely love that piece. Yeah. Wonderful.
It was really satisfying to paint. I'm not gonna lie. This was a commission, and so I painted a painting for this guy before, and he got at me like 9 months ago and was like, "Oh my God, I found this paint. Like I found this this still, and I want you to paint it for me." And I was just so excited. At that point I was busy. I was like in a artist fellowship, and we were getting ready for our group show. So I was like, "All right, hold on. I'm gonna do this other thing. I'm gonna move to Chicago, and then I'm gonna paint your painting." And I bless him. He was so patient because I had to paint it like so slowly. And it was like all I wanted to do. No, I didn't want to like take trips to the dump and clean my house before moving. Like I wanted to paint this sick ass painting. So actually getting to a point where it was close to done, I was like, oh, hell yes. And it's always a delight when something turns out how you want it to. And I'm kind of sad to see it go, but nothing feels better than sending a painting off knowing somebody's going to really enjoy it. I mean, it's such a privilege. So
Absolutely.
I'm excited about it. I'm excited that that you and other people have responded positively to it, because it is telling me that I'm not like getting soft just because I can only paint like once a week. I am. Do you have any kids?
I do not have kids, but this was it's always such an interesting thing to me, because I'm pretty lucky with how I get to work, with a lot less other stuff going on, but I always find it so fascinating of people that have family, that have all this other stuff going on, but then still being able to slot the art into your life. So this was something I was kind of interested to talk to you about that kind of like balance and how you make it work.
Well, it doesn't. Like, I don't know. I wish I could do more. I feel like I have to fight for it. And like, my husband is so great, and he supports me as much as he can to like be able to step away from the kids and like actually have some time to paint. But honestly, I'm kind of just accepting that I'm not going to be able to do it at the same level for a while. Like at the beginning of the pandemic, so I got pregnant with my twins like April 2020. So like there was a good couple months in there where I had been let go from one job. My other job was like basically being a bartender, so that place wasn't open. And I was getting unemployment, which ruled, but I just went out into my garage and painted for like 8 hours a day. And it was so
Awesome.
sick. It was so great. I miss it every day. And like, don't get it twisted. Love my kids. But they run into my room at like 6:37 in the morning, and they want to get in bed and look at pictures of snakes, which is really cool. And, a great way to wake up. But then I'm with them until they go to bed at like 7, and I don't like, they go to preschool, but there's a whole other baby. So I'm just like got my hands full all the time. So I'm actually trying to like, we do a lot of art together, and I'm trying to like teach them to like the stuff I like to do so I can do it more.
Smart.
That's the key to having kids, I think. But I can't really show them wrestling right now because they will fight each other. So
Oh yeah.
we like used to watch shows with them, but now they are too suggestible and capable of hurting each other or the baby. So
Yeah, that makes sense. I remember myself growing up with Power Rangers, and it was a bad time for inspiring violence. So I can only imagine professional wrestling.
Yeah, I was absolutely into Power Rangers too. And somehow, like I was the youngest, and my older sister would just like put me between and sit on. I just was like so tolerant of the most like brutal sibling torture. But anyway, one thing that I do, or try to do at least, is like a one for me, one for you policy, where like I'm going to do a commission, and then every other time I have to paint, I'm going to like work on my own painting. So I have like two going at once. So when one is drying between layers, I can do the other one or whatever. And that way it feels still kind of like I get to have time where it's just me and art, and I'm not doing it for somebody else, and I'm not doing it for money. I'm just like using it as what it truly is to me, which is kind of like some emotional processing. So wrestling has showed up in that realm of my art making. Wrestling, like usually like a female wrestler's representative of, a rejection of whatever kind of patriarchal value or structure I'm like thinking about while I'm painting.
Yeah, that's so cool. That's actually a really good way to approach it balance-wise. I mean, yeah, commission stuff is amazing. I love all of the commission things that I do. But yeah, sometimes there's a difference between doing that and this satisfaction, I guess, that you get out of doing stuff that's inspired from your own kind of like interests. I mean, one of the things I'm wondering, so when, and I've got some other artist friends that have got families, and they tell me about just, making it work. It's not about sort of getting to pick and choose the time when you're feeling particularly inspired or whatever. It's just kind of like, this is your fucking window, so you better do shit. So,
Yeah.
They've told me that it can be a really good thing because it just puts you straight into the, all right, well, I just got to get this shit done, and I've just got to do it, and I'm not going to wait for inspiration or any of that bullshit. I mean, I could say the same when I've had different solo shows in the past, and you just have this thing of like, you just need to get this done, otherwise it's not going to be done for the show kind of thing. So I wonder, is there a positive there as well where you just like, you don't have to wait, you just like, let's bloody do this?
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. It's hard. I have to admit, with oil paint, it's hard because there's so much like setup and mixing and washing brushes and just like artwork that has to be done around the painting.
Mm-hmm.
So I find that, when I have maybe like 45 minutes to paint, I can do some awesome painting that is kind of like unburdened by by having too much time. Like if I just have to get it done, something like magical happens in my brain where I'm like not stopping to nitpick little things that end up making me like overwork an area, and now it sticks out even more and my painting's kind of fucked. So when it works really well. It can like, I love talking about positive things, but it is heartbreaking when you don't get to spend enough time painting. This is painting wrestlers has been key in a journey of like self-actualization for me. Like, I feel like when I learned about wrestling, it changed who I was like as a person. I mean, this sounds ridiculous, but like it's led me down this road of not just entertaining me as like a fan, but it has led me into like a realm of academic inquiry that I like wasn't interested in before. And it has enriched my life in this like wonderful way. So to say, all right, my kids go to bed at 7, I'm just going to like roll down into the basement and paint for like 2 hours and then go to bed. Like, that's great. At the end of the day, a lot of times I'm fucking beat, and it really bums me out. And I'm just being honest here because I feel like, again, love my kids, but talking about having a family in art school is not something that happened. And I know that like my teachers weren't out there being like, hey, if you're a woman, like traditionally, if you have kids, it kind of like really fucks your chances of having any kind of like commercial success or anything, because galleries don't want to give representation to people, specifically women who have families, because then they don't have full access to you because they're like, oh, well, you just have to pick your kids up from school or whatever. So like, obviously my teachers didn't want to tell me that, but at the same time, it is kind of true. Like I can't just like paint into the night because I can't call in like sick to work the next day because I'm too tired. Like my kids show up at my bed. So I can't give as much to painting as I want to, which bums me out. But I know that wrestling and painting are not going anywhere, and that there are times when like the stars align and, oh my God, I actually do get that 2 hours of painting. And that is the best feeling because it reminds me like I am still this person. I'm not just mom. And I love being mom. I do. But like I contain multitudes, and I can't really watch wrestling with my kids right now. But when they are a little bit older and they have any kind of like impulse not to just murder each other, like, and we actually do get to watch wrestling, I think they're going to be really, really into it. But right now they're a little too violent.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. There's definitely something that's super cool to see through a child's eyes, I think, the magic of professional wrestling. Again, probably when they're a bit older and not, going to be practicing pile drivers on one another.
Yeah, mine just turned 3, so they don't know. My favorite thing is at an indie show to watch a kid watch something. It's like my favorite when a wrestler notices there's a kid in the audience. Like there was this guy in Portland, he was called El Chupacabra, and he was like in full. Do you know what a chupacabra is?
Yeah, the
Okay.
Mexican creature sort of. Yeah, for sure. Love that stuff.
Yeah, so he was like in a full costume of that, and there was one time he came out and there's like a 6-year-old kid in front of me, and it's like the whole crowd disappeared, and he was just doing his whole entrance for this kid, and the kid realized that he could boo the wrestler and was really into it, and it was just like extremely heartwarming because at the end of the day, wrestling is like for kids. I mean, it's like for us, but it's also for like the kids in us, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
It's very pure.
I absolutely love it, and especially a lot of the stuff that I get into is Mexican wrestling, and seeing the kids' reactions to that kind of stuff is always such an amazing thing, and seeing the kids with the masks and like just the whole. Oh man, there's something weird about wrestling where there's a lot of it that I love that's like really, hyper, quite violent and stuff that's probably not very child friendly at all. But then there's another side of it where you can see the, just that childlike wonder of it kind of thing, and seeing that sparkle in their eye from seeing this like basically, superheroes come to life in real life kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. It's magical. I I often wonder just like, who are my kids going to be? Like, are they going to be, they better not be in Bullet Club. They better not be Bullet Club kids. They like chaos. Definitely. My daughter, I thought from the beginning is like LIJ, but now I wonder. We'll see. Time will tell.
So interesting. We'll see. It's like good guys, bad guys. See which way we go.
Yeah. They're twins, so one of them has to be evil.
Yeah. You gotta have that black hat, white hat combo there for sure. Oh man, that's so good. So you mentioned about like the process of the layers and all that with the oil painting specifically. So that was one of the things that really caught my eye of your work. Just, I love oil painting as a medium. Mostly, when I'm seeing it in a gallery kind of environment, it's always a thing that makes me want to go up to it and almost like, you want to touch it. You can't touch it, but you want to touch it. It's so textural and beautiful, and I don't know. There's something just so timeless about it as well. I absolutely love it. I used to do play around with oils myself ages ago, back when I was in art school, but I haven't worked in it for so long, but looking at your work was really like inspired me to want to get back into it. So tell me a little bit about like what was it about oils that sort of made you more specialize in that of late?
Well, I've always thought oils were just like peak artist stuff. Like I grew up, my grandma would take me, not the one from the WrestleMania story, but my other grandma would take me to the art museum all the time. And she loved to take me to go see Impressionists. And so I grew up like thinking, and I still kind of do think this, that like Monet is just like the best painter. And the way that like oil paint has a life of its own. It is about paint, like the kind of nonsense word of like painterly. People say painting is painterly because it's like about paint. It's frustratingly vague to say that, but like that's what oil paint is. And I remember learning in art school that Van Gogh ate his paints, and that his brother was like, "Yo, he wrote in a letter, like, if you can't stop eating your paints, you should probably switch to like charcoal." And that's the reason that like kids eat like lead paint on the walls, because it like apparently heavy metals taste good, and that's like what they would use in oil paint before they had like synthetic pigments. Or I guess you can still get the heavy metal stuff, but like there is a sumptuous quality about it that
absolutely.
It's luxurious, and I like it for this medium because, or for this subject matter, because wrestling, I mentioned before that I used to look down on it. I thought it was like too lowbrow for me or whatever. And like my mom really doesn't like wrestling. She doesn't like that I paint it. She wishes I would paint her grandchildren and flowers and like things that she likes to look at. But this is what I do. She worked in this like performance, like a nonprofit that put on a 9-month performance series annually, and they would bring classical musicians and ballet and stuff like that. And I tried to be like, yeah, I'm like, this is that. Like wrestling is ballet. It is people doing crazy things with their bodies, and it's sometimes more narrative and sometimes less narrative, and sometimes there's words and sometimes there's not. But like, it's kind of the same thing. And sorry, I'm like just totally followed myself down a rabbit hole that I lost track of where I was going with that.
I totally get you on the comparison to ballet, by the way, especially from like the extreme like sacrifice and physicality of it. Like one of my very favorite movies. I'm a big fan of Darren Aronofsky, but the Black Swan. I thought the parallels in that. Between his, the amazing Mickey Rourke, the wrestler movie. It's basically telling the same story, and there's so many similarities between these two, weird, subcultures or whatever you'd call it. But I think there's so many parallels, as you're saying, and that a lot of people wouldn't even think about between ballet and professional wrestling.
Yes. Okay. So I just remembered where I was going with that.
Nice.
You're absolutely right. And it's I like using oil paint and wrestling together because it marries this lowbrow subject matter with a really highbrow art medium.
Love that.
And like wrestling shouldn't be impressionist, or it's not like good enough to be impressionist or whatever. But like Degas was painting like nothing but ballerinas in kind of a creepy way if you think about it. Like if an old dude made a bunch of paintings of like little girls, I mean, anyway,
it's kind of weird.
This lends itself really, really well to being painted in an impressionist style. I mean, I was thinking that the whole time with this Onita Fireball painting, like they were always just interested in light and capturing different, just like trying to figure out how to get that into a painting is a really satisfying puzzle that the Impressionists did over and over again. And that's what inspired me originally to want to paint in oils, because that it's so, looking at every single Monet painting is so like, wow, I can't believe he did that. And to do that with wrestling, to me, subverts a like a haughtiness that comes with, like, oh, I like fine art.
That's so cool. It kind of like points out the contrast, really, like you're saying, of the highbrow medium with the lowbrow subject matter.
Yeah, totally.
That's something that has come up pretty much every one of these interviews that I've done, by the way. It always ends up somehow touching on sort of the fact that professional wrestling is, in of itself, it is a lowbrow subculture. And it's sort of bringing it out of that into a gallery setting, into a fine art medium like oils. I think that's something that's so fascinating about this whole wrestling art thing. It's like, it's the fact that it is so inherently lowbrow that I think is why we find it fascinating to paint. Maybe, I don't know.
That certainly could be part of it, because there's so many people who are inspired by looking at this, and it's a curious thing making art about art. But I think that wrestling's like a big thing it's trying to do is give you that snapshot of, if you look at something from the right angle, it's like really incredible. And they do it over and over again so that you have lots of opportunities to like take the picture, to spread the image around so that more people will come to the next show, right? Because like, I love wrestling so much, but isn't wrestling kind of about like getting people to come to the next show?
Yeah, basically selling tickets, selling pay-per-views, all that stuff.
So they're just handing out all of these cinematic moments that are just perfect for photography, for drawing, painting, any visual media, video. Like, I don't know. There's something really special about wrestling And I think it's because there's this symbiosis between like like the wrestlers and the promoters and then the audience. Like they're reflecting to us narratives that we want to see as the audience. And then they also depend on our participation as the audience to like move along their wrestling. Like one doesn't exist without the other one. So
It's such an interactive medium.
yeah, it's like I'm still fascinated by it. It's been like 5 years of me being in this weird little world, and I still just want to talk about like what wrestling is. You know, I think that there's something not think I like know that there is something really basic in us as humans that like we want to engage in like mock violence together as a group. Like this is why we have sports.
Yeah.
But to be able to work through narratives as a group is like really, really important. And wrestling, like it does that in a serious way. Like there's lots of serious things that like wrestling talks about, but then it's like sandwiched between dick jokes or like, you know, really outlandish displays of violence, like just insane stuff that makes it palatable when you actually do like gain something significant from watching wrestling. I don't know. Have you ever had wrestling like change your life a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, for the amount of, I think, you know, from when I originally got into it when I was younger, you know, in my sort of adolescent kind of age, I just found it so fascinating. I think exactly what you're saying about sort of the theatrical element of it, sort of being disguised as like a pseudo sport. I think that is super interesting, and then like the different narrative things that are woven through it, and then just sort of it becomes something that just gives, if you get into it, it gives you more and more, you know, like a really good subculture, a really good, you know, weird interest that you've got that can put you through a Wikipedia rabbit hole, or like a, you know, cage match database is one of my favorite things in the world, to just go down a rabbit hole and be like, what was this guy doing in 1982? Something like that, like the nerddom of it.
I wish I had that at the time. Yeah, when I was in art school, I would just go through all of like the Akira Hakuto's like 5-star matches and just be like, oh, well, I have like a whole afternoon off. Someday when I get these kids into college, just like only wrestling.
Oh, it's so good, so good. I guess one of the things you mentioned about your mother that is not, you know, necessarily a fan of you focusing on this subject matter. So that's an interesting thing to me, because and especially like outside of that sort of like direct friends and family of like, oh, why are you, you know, painting that weird stuff? But like getting more to, let's say, your art world, or like what you were saying about that sort of like art community that you had in Portland that just wouldn't maybe quite get it. I mean, what are your experiences like? Do you have much like in the way of the sort of like art world, what their take is on this kind of like wrestling stuff of yours?
Okay, so when I was in art school, my teachers, like the professors in the painting department, were kind of split on it. I had a couple who were like, what you're doing is really cool and valid and you should keep doing it. And then there was another guy who happened to be like pretty influential, who was like, this is corny and shitty and not, you know, she should like, he like told me I should just stop painting it, which is just, it's just like not what you should do.
That's so lame.
Right. Yeah. I think he had issues with me for like a different reason. But I don't know. It's like not even worth it for me to think about. But I do think that, you know, when I got into art school in like 2016, oh my God, sorry, time. I remember hearing like, okay, well, figurative art, narrative art, and like painting are kind of like passe, painting on like canvas. And they're like, you know, so you sure you want to pursue that? And I was like, oh, fuck that. I'm going to do whatever I want to do. So as I've continued into this world over time, I've seen like maybe this is just the world I'm in on Instagram or whatever, but it seems to me like figurative art is like actually kind of coming back into play a lot.
I
like
would agree.
in particular. So I think that, and I've actually seen, I mean, there's a lot of wrestling painters out there, and I, again, not sure if it's just my algorithm or whatever, but it seems like it's becoming a more popular like subject matter. I think maybe Glow coming out made it more
So good.
Like it exposed more people to it, and the people who would be interested to carry on like studying wrestling, for lack of a better way of phrasing it, did. Just like a net to catch more people to get into this world. But I don't really care if like capital F fine art like thinks that my painting is valid or not, because I'm like very enriched by I get a lot out of the community that I'm in and that we're in. And if I'm able to just paint, that makes me happy. And like, yes, I would like to, like, the dream is to be paid to paint, but I don't need to have like the gallery fine art world accept me or whatever, give me representation in order for me to like keep working. You know, I think that's one way of doing it, but like, I think that as a stay-at-home mom who's doing like figurative wrestling paintings, that maybe it's not even worth it for me to like try to get representation and go about doing art in the realms where people actually want to be seeing this. Does that make sense? Like, there's a lot of people out there who think like wrestling art is super awesome, and if it's not going to get into like the Venice Biennale, then like, or Biennial or whatever, like I'll live. I just like doing it.
I think it's an interesting thing, because on one hand, you know, I could use my kind of like what I think of the fine art world and academia kind of thing, of thinking like, oh yeah, you know, a lot of them might think this wrestling kind of stuff is a bit like, you know, why are you doing that? I don't really get it, that whole kind of thing. But then I'm often surprised, and I get this more and more, especially when I talk to other, you know, wrestling oriented artists. Most of my art, when I'm doing, you know, like a group show, or, you know, or even in solo shows at bars and different things like that, most of the people that end up buying my art, or, you know, I did an expo recently, got to talk to a whole bunch of people, and the ones that bought it, they're not wrestling fans. They have, you know, no real connection to this other than being like, oh, I just, you know, sort of, it's like weird and cool. And I think that is the most interesting audience for all this stuff. It's like appealing beyond the boundaries of, you know, people that are, you know, necessarily wrestling fans, to people that are like, there's something about this weird, you know, bulbous, oiled up, bloody figure that you've painted, you know, in spandex or whatever, that I just find fascinating. And I think that is a real interesting thing to ponder.
Yeah, it's really satisfying. I'm always, so I've sold a couple pieces to like non-wrestling people, and have, you know, there's first like the, oh, why do you want this kind of question. And I realized like, oh, because like I've made a painting that they want to look at, and I should just accept that that is a possible way someone could react to my work. But what I find even more exciting than that is when somebody knows my work and then gets curious about wrestling.
Yes.
I have taken like a number of, so DOA used to do shows like 2 blocks away from my art school. So I would go and paint, and then I would take like a little kit of paints with me to the comedy club where they would put it on. LOL. It has since gone under since the pandemic. It was the funniest, weirdest place to have wrestling. But I would sit at this table in the back and just like paint while I was there, trying to just capture the energy of it in a painting. And they never turned out great, but like, man, those were the best, just like the best days. But I was able to like drag some friends along, because we had these shared studios, and a lot of people like obliged me and went, but there were a couple people that started going with me like every month. And that,
Awesome.
yeah, right. I'm like, man, I'm glad I could be that person for you. You're like shepherd into pro wrestling. Like,
That's
come with
so
me.
great. Like you've opened their eyes to this whole weird world that they're like, this, I had no idea this was even a thing.
I know, it's almost, it like kind of is better than selling a painting to somebody who like doesn't really like wrestling, because it's like on the one hand you have my painting, but on the other hand you have this whole world of wrestling.
Oh my
The
gosh.
gift that keeps on giving.
You know, the amount of friends, I just had some friends recently at a New Year's party who they know, you know, I'm the wrestling guy, I'm the wrestling art guy or whatever. And this is, you know, non-wrestling friends. They went to Mexico City recently, so they actually got to go to Arena Mexico and see CMLL, which is like one of my all-time bucket list things, to get to see wrestling in Arena Mexico. And they told me how they just went because they, you know, knew about this wrestling thing from like, you know, my art or whatever. So there's like, oh yeah, let's go see some Mexican wrestling. They said it was one of the most mind-blowingly cool experiences of their life. So similar kind of deal. That felt so good to be like, oh my gosh, that's amazing.
You know, I don't know. Okay, so there's a thing. I'm really interested in like early human history and like Paleolithic art. And we don't really know. We'll never know exactly why Paleolithic art was made, but like there's a lot of theories about what it does, what its purpose is for like group psychology. And I mentioned before that I think that there's like something really innate in us to want to like engage narrative as a group, and specifically like narrative around violence and conflict. But so like going to a wrestling show, like people don't realize what it's going to be like. And I think that there's something that happens for us as humans where if we're engaging in a story together in an audience, we're like breathing at the same time and we're reacting to things at the same time. And there is some kind of greater experience that happens when you watch it as a group than it is even when you watch it on TV or if you're just looking at pictures of it. And there's an article by, do you know Roland Barthes? I think it's called like The Art of Wrestling. He talks about wrestling, just like what wrestling is and how it performs or how it interacts with like people psychologically. He theorizes that, you know, because you're like being tricked into seeing things that tell you you're seeing a violent act, your sympathetic nervous system reacts as though you're actually seeing a violent act, even though your brain like a moment later will remind you, oh, they didn't actually get hit in the way it looked like that it wasn't actually real in the way it was presented. So you have you know, a deeper response to watching wrestling like psychologically than you would to like when you're there than you would to like not actually being in the same room as the person.
Yeah, like being part of the collective suspension of disbelief, I guess.
Yes, exactly. It's just I'm very interested in how like just like what it is about wrestling that is so satisfying for us to engage with.
Yeah, same. I would love to read that. Please, if you could send me a link or something so I can access that. That sounds absolutely right up my alley.
Yeah, it's really short. But yeah, I'll send it your way for sure. It's a good little article.
Please, amazing. All right, well, I have a last question as we're getting towards the tail end of this. We're getting a bit late. Do you have a favorite wrestler to make art of, like someone that you just get the most enjoyment, or that it's become a recurring sort of like character because you just really dig making art of them so much?
I love Akira Hakuto, Minami Toyota, and Megumi Kudo. I know that's 3, but like if I ever don't know what to paint, I just like look them.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I have to dig kind of deep to find some stuff I haven't seen yet, but going back and watching matches that I've watched a bunch of times are still great. I'm interested in like, I would really like to learn how to take photos so I could paint some like indie wrestlers, because I would really like to like have a conversation with somebody that I'm painting, because I'm often really curious about like what kind of headspace a wrestler gets in to like inhabit this character, and just kind of like what the performers um I don't know what their experience is like on the other side of this, because we're kind of meeting in the middle with our art making, right?
Yeah, for sure. I think that's super fascinating. I actually was looking to maybe have some wrestlers on the show in the near future, basically looking to have that same kind of like conversation to see how they look at it as like a creative kind of medium, in the same way that we would look at this as like a creative subject matter kind of thing. So I think that could be an interesting thing.
Yeah.
But man, those are three incredible names to list, and every time I've done any drawings or anything of any of those, it's so much fun. And definitely special shout out to that amazing Megumi Kudo versus Combat Toyota death match in FMW with the exploding barbed wire ropes. That is one of my very favorite matches of all time.
All time. That was one of the first Joshi matches I watched, where I was just like, I don't even know what I am seeing, but I'm so here for it. Just a breath of fresh air.
Magical. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate your time. Can I please let me know? Do you have anything you'd like to plug on the show here?
You can find me at Helen Hunter Art on Instagram, and my website is helenhunterart.com. I always take commissions. Hit me up. But yeah, I don't know, just keep it cool.
Nice. I could not think of anything better than getting a piece of yours from a friend as like a gift or something like that. So please, guys, check out Helen's stuff. Have a look at her work, and yeah, bloody get a commission sorted. My gosh. But no, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I'd love to connect down the road. Maybe we can have you on later on and see how your wrestling art journey's going.
I would love that. Take care, Chris. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, there we go. What a bloody delightful chat. that was actually a lot of fun. I am loving this artist interview thing. I feel like I'm getting something different out of every single one. So I'm definitely most certainly keen to keep this going and talk to a whole gaggle of more talented wrestling artists. And man, big thank you to Helen there. We got into some stuff that I wasn't quite expecting, but there's such a lot of interesting theory stuff about this thing that we all love. But there you go. I'll say a big thank you for myself to everyone here, for all of y'all for listening and supporting, for subscribing to the show. Hey, if you feel like leaving a little old review, that wouldn't be too harmful. Tell a friend. Let's just grow this thingy of ours, this wrestling art weird addiction that we've got, I guess. But also big thank you to the great guys at Social Suplex for keeping the lights on, for letting me do this cool thing. Check out socialsuplex.com for a whole variety of other rad wrestling podcasts. Not as specifically niche as wrestling art, but you got stuff ranging from a fantastic New Japan podcast, keeping it strong style, to there's an AEW podcast, there's One Nation Radio, a whole bunch of rad stuff. Social Suplex. If you want to follow me, I imagine you might be already, but for anyone that's somehow come across this podcast and doesn't, at Chris Thinks on the Twitter and on the Instagram. Twitter, you'll get all the updates about their new podcasts and some different stuff there. Instagram for all that, but also a whole bunch of my art stuff. And then, of course, christhings.com.au, where you can go to buy yourself a rad little wrestling print, to perhaps buy an original, to buy a calendar, all the stuff. And just please know that when you do buy those things, I appreciate it immensely. Every $1 spent on there goes towards enabling this this weird nonsense wrestling art practice of mine. So if you dig that kind of stuff and you want more of it to happen, that's the exact way to do it. But yeah, thanks again, guys, and I'll see you next week.
I do the hammer lock. Do the